So today, Shadow Ninja is going to dive down the rabbit hole of the Divinity Controversy. Now, this has been very interesting among the Destiny community. One of the best players in Destiny 2, Salt, I can't argue he's not one of the best because he is a back-to-back-to-back champion. He has said some things about the Divinity Exotic Trace Rifle, and it has sparked a massive backlash on his end. I mean, come on. Saying something controversial in Destiny 2 always kind of does, even if it's obvious. But in this case, I want to give him credit. I agree with him in some ways, but I disagree with him in many other ways. Doesn't mean he's wrong. Doesn't mean I'm right. It's just I feel differently about it. Now, I will admit the perspective he's coming from is kind of what we can call an elitist perspective. He brings up a lot of, arguments and a lot of different things that really only affect those who are in the top 1% of the game. And if you guys listen to my, commentary on Call of Duty, for example, I have been very against pro players dictating the sandbox and the design choices for the game itself. The reason why that is the case is because if we look for Rainbow Six Siege, pros complained about an operator a certain bit. However, they nerfed him because he was being very useful in a pro scene. However, if you guys shift even pre-nerf, shift to a general public rank top tier, diamond level rank situation, that operator was not being utilized effectively compared to pros. So balancing based on the top 1% of the game never really bodes well. So I am against a lot of what he says because I don't think Divinity is an issue. I think if they want to spice things up with how you do encounters and in-game activities, that's solely based on the design choices. We see it with Duality and we see it with Val the Disciple, that there are ways to, I guess you could say, freshen up the encounter cycle for players itself. So with that being said, let's give Salt some credit and, see what he says, and then I'll break it apart as we go. So on Twitter, which is not a good place to voice your opinions. Hey, this is going to be a thread. I've been thinking about a way to nerf Divinity for quite a bit. This gun is basically mandatory for most encounters, and it makes aiming a non-factor, which is very unhealthy for the game for multiple reasons, such as removing most of the skill gap during DPS and making precision weapons way too easy to use, forcing high-risk, high-reward weapons such as Whisper the Worm out of the meta since they simply can't be buffed. Otherwise, they would be S tier due to Divinity removing the risk aspect. Now, on this end, I understand the desire to make Whisper the Worm a much better weapon for the meta. However, Divinity isn't the reason for that. Whisper the Worm, unfortunately, is a heavy weapon sniper. That sounds awful as is. I'm sorry. I mean, it's a cool weapon. It's one of the coolest exotics to get in the game, but come on, who wants to use a sniper as a heavy weapon? Like, that's never really been a thing. You kind of switch to rocket launchers, LMGs, linear fusions. Being a sniper in the heavy slot isn't already a good design choice for Whisper of the Worm. They make this a kinetic weapon or an energy weapon. That's a way they can revert it and make it a much better option for players, but again, that's on Bungie's discretion, not my discretion. Now, continues on. For the longest time, I didn't really ever come up with a viable solution. I don't think removing the debuff will be too much. Teams will still apply debuff by other means and use Divinity on top of it for easy criticals. Reducing reserve or mag size would probably be pretty insignificant. We have multiple ways to produce special ammo on demand, and hunters can easily negate low mag size downsides by just dodging to reload or throwing a shuriken. Now, on this end, I will say that this is very, very high skill IQ or high skill player tactics. The reason why I say that is that how many hunters really use their dodging to negate low mag size in PvE? Like, just think about that. If you are a hardcore PvP player and you're using Hunter, I totally get the world where you realize this is a buff and you utilize it to your advantage. However, in PvE, many players, even though they play passionately, still don't fully utilize all class abilities. This is a very top 1% way of thinking and way of saying things. Again, he's not wrong, but at the same time, not everybody uses that. So a nerf to mag size, in my opinion, would be a massive hit. Same thing with a debuff, because you are really targeting this nerf for the top 1% to, I guess you could say, shake up how the world's first or how world's first endgame activities, whatever, do play out. So there's just that. Now, continues on. There aren't really many viable solutions without completely reworking the weapon, in my opinion. The guaranteed crits are just too good on certain bosses, but not long ago, I finally came up with an idea that could work while also preserving the gun's identity. What if Divinity kept giving the crit bubble but provided 0% debuff that overrides any other debuff? so that, for example, Divinity plus Tether still resulted in no debuff as long as Divinity is applied. That would make it so if you decide to use Divinity, you sacrifice someone's damage and lose the ability to debuff the target, making it a safe option but worse compared to what a skilled team could pull off by hitting their shots. Now, I want to take a step back before we continue. I understand the reasoning for it. However, Divinity in many cases makes bad players in PvE much better. Divinity, I guess you could say, is a unifying community weapon to allow all different skill levels to play together. It's just the reality of it. If you remove Divinity, for example, in Deep Stone Crit and you lose that debuff, how many players let's say you're carrying a team of 3 and you're getting your buddies involved in the raid for the first time, and the second raid you guys go through is Deep Stone. You kind of need Divinity because of the critical spot, and that raid is very hard to do without landing criticals or having high DPS options like all in-game activities. But for Deep Stone, it really is on the harder side of things. Divinity negates that and makes it a much more easy time, enjoyable time for the general public, not for the top 1%. But at the same time, Divinity serves a great purpose for most of the game, while here, again, he's really focusing in on the top 1%, which I don't agree with. Now, continues on, that would make it so if you decide to use Divinity, you both sacrifice someone's damage and lose the ability to debuff the target, making it a safe option. Now, it goes on to continue. This is something that should be easy to implement from a technical standpoint, since we already had past lower percent debuffs that used to override higher ones, and it would make using Divinity a choice with a strong trade-off. This change wouldn't really affect a less skilled team that wants an easy crit when running their weekly raid. I really disagree with that because, kind of being a little ignorant to the amount of players that are playing this game, or the type of players that are playing this game. Not everybody puts hours upon hours in the game like we can. People come in, they do maybe a raid a week. Maybe they don't have all the best weapons, stuff like that. It's just very not true to say that it wouldn't affect a less skilled team. I think it has a lot to do, and it makes things much more frustrating, which I don't think you want to do for new players. You want them to have fun with raids because it is kind of the pinnacle experience of Destiny. And he continues on before I cut him off. Since damage checks in normal mode are easy enough, as long as you are hitting your shots, a debuff isn't needed. I have played with people that this will definitely be noticeable, so I don't think it is the right option because you are really keeping this change on the top 1% won't be affected, while I guess you could say the bottom 60% of the game will feel affected. And not saying 60% of the players on the bottom half aren't good in the game, but that's when you start mixing up a lot of different types of fire teams, and that's when things get a little shaky. On the other hand, it would make day 1 contest raids way more interesting, since ambitious teams will be able to risk not using Divinity and try to get a higher DPS output by hitting their shots. Again, I think that's kind of the exposing part of this. I mean, he's speaking on the side of maybe being bored that he got world's first back to back. I get it. You want a contest. I think it was a very good race. I tuned in this time and it was very fun. There was 4 teams at Oryx, but it's just like, come on now. It's something, it's coming from an elitist point, and I don't think that, I think the main drawback and the main controversy and the main frustration around everybody is the fact that this is one of the best players complaining about something that really is just kind of affecting his little bubble of players. If he doesn't want to use Divinity, I mean, go ahead. You don't have to use Divinity. I don't think you should punish the rest of the community on getting it. The only complaint I would have about Divinity, honestly, and this is going to lead to what I think they should change, is actually make it way more accessible for players to get. The quest isn't sounding hard on paper. However, you guys know, and you guys got Divinity and you guys tried carrying people through Divinity, it can be a very frustrating time because it requires all 6 of your fire team members to be competent and listen and be locked in, especially at the last, I guess you could say, puzzle lining thing, tether thing, whatever. So that's the only change I will be. Make it more accessible, change the quest, have it as a drop at the end of Garden of Salvation, and I think that raid will see a little bit more action. And honestly, I think it'll be better if more people had it. Another thing too is that Divinity just doesn't also offer a crit spot. It's an intrinsic overload and can be a great option for Grandmasters or Master Nightfall. So again, I think it's on the side of elitism when they make this comment. I don't think he's wrong. I think he's correct when it comes to the top 1% having this issue. But again, even with that being said, I still do not agree with affecting the majority of the player base for a pro change. So that's my take on the controversy. I don't think I'm right. I don't think he's right. I don't think either of us are right. I think it's fine as is. Maybe things change. But that being said, that's all I got to say on this one. Let me know your comments down below on just Divinity, I guess you could say, controversy. I think it's not a conversation we should have. I don't think we should nerf it, but maybe you feel differently about it. Let me know down in the comment section. If you guys also enjoyed this video, found this video informative, or just enjoy the content, definitely drop this video a like, helps out the video a lot. If you guys are also new here and want more content from me, whether it's Destiny, Call of Duty, Ready or Not, or any other game you see on our channel, definitely hit that subscribe button and the bell to be notified for when I drop content. But until then, hope you guys have a good one. Shen Energy here, and I'm out.